Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Super On Time Toku Portal podcast. I am Rai, and with me is.
Decade.
Sorry, Henshin.
Now, little king.
And zero.
And today we're talking about Kamen Rider Zi-O Episode 2. Now, most of you weren't here for Episode 1, so starting with Henshin, do you guys just want to give, some quick thoughts about your first impressions?
Okay. Going semi-chronological order, I love the opening. I think it's better than Be the One, and it actually is timed to the music, which is great. I like the jingle and the belt, as well as the transformation sequences. Sogo, he, it is he's probably an idiot, but he's kind of also dorky. And my favorite character is Waz. Gate seems pretty flat. Tsukiyomi, I feel, could easily move a lot, but right now my favorite character is Waz. It's very nice to see Sento and Banjo again, even if it's for a cameo, and even if I wonder where the rest of the cast is, although I know where the rest of the cast is. But I feel it's a fairly solid introduction episode, even if not perfect.
If I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea what to make of this series, even with episode 2. I mean, the characters are okay, I guess. The story is. Well, we'll get to that. But if I'm gonna be perfectly honest, I don't know what to make of most of this, and I'm okay with that because I like being surprised.
Okay. I'm assuming Ryan Decade were there because they're always there. So I guess I'll give my thoughts. Um, right. First episode, actually pretty boring. I was like almost till the end. I was like, man, why am I even watching this damn thing? Um, but by the end, I'm like, okay, Gates' suit is cool. I guess I'll give episode 2 a go. Episode 2 is a lot better. It's not great, but it's better. Um, As for like the character, okay, the characters are hilarious because it's literally like okay, the main character is a little different, so I can't just put him on like oh he's this character because he's slightly different than any of the lead writers, so that's fine. As for like the supporting cast is hilarious because it's like oh all right, so you basically have Hana from fucking Deno, then you have like the guy with the book is basically like G3's main user. Like he looks so similar. I'm like, holy shit, dude, did you come back? But I'm like, it's been like 20 years. It's not possible. I mean, maybe not that long, but still, it's been close to it. Um, and then you have Gates, which is like freaking mini Ren. Um, and at first, when I saw him, I'm like, okay, I don't like you because you look like basically like a shittier version of Ren. But like in episode 2, he's a lot better. So I'm like, okay, you're not terrible. No, um, their freaking time travel things being like weirdo bike things. I'm like, oh, this is weird, but I guess like this is Kamen Rider, so we had to put the bike somewhere. Um, I mean, like the time machine bikes, not the ones from that they ride on. That's cool. That's like a Gaim thing. I'm like at least some other rider. Well, I guess Sento like builded that too. That's cool. Um, as for like the trio, well, I guess there's how many bad guys are there? Three or
There's
four?
three confirmed ones. Uh,
Does the guy with the book count as one of them?
Not right now, but probably later.
Okay, so yeah, there are four weirdos. Um, I guess like literally everybody in this damn show is a weirdo. His like the main character's uncle is the cool dude. I'm like that's nice. You're chill. So I also kind of like that the main character kind of like gets shit done, where it's like, yeah, he doesn't overreact or anything. It's just like, yeah, he gets it, kind of. Like, especially in episode 2, he's pretty mellow. I mean, like, it's progressing a lot faster than I thought because it's not being bogged down by, like, stupid main character. Because he seems naive, so you'd think he'd get, like, the dumbass traits that those types of characters get, but he doesn't. Um, the rider suits, like, the main rider suit is nice, but, like, I'm normally not a fan of the red rider suits, but Gates' suit is pretty freaking awesome. It might just be because it's got such good, like, it's the mask is so good, but like I forgive the rest of the nonsense. Even then, like their suits are pretty streamlined.
I do really want to
The
see
plot,
Gay's
yeah,
Ryuki form.
yeah, that would be interesting. Um, like their gimmick of like the armor riders. At first, when like the mechs show up, like their time ships, I'm like, oh, okay, so are the armors gonna go on the mechs because they look like, like the armor images of the armors look like they could be like mini Sentai mecha, right? Because they're so boxy. I mean, not that boxy, but like they look like, I'm like, okay, are we adding like mechs into Rider like that one in Forza? But no, it just comes on as like armor. So I'm like, that's fine. I mean, the only thing that I'm kind of disappointed is we're not going to get a Ghost episode now because like Gates already has Ghosts. So that sucks. But maybe they couldn't get Tucker in time, or maybe he'll come later. It'll be a flashback or something. That should be
I was
interesting.
kind of proposing that could be sort of half ghost episode and half backstory to Gates.
I like that idea. Gates needs more backstory and more character development overall.
And we'd get the ghost crew on top of it.
Well, we're probably not going to get the Ghost crew. It's going to be hard enough to get the main writer. Like, Taku showing up is hard enough. Like, as much as, like, as awesome as a supporting cast as Ryder has, like, especially Heisei Ryder, like, they never come back. It sucks. So, like, basically, unless it's, like, a cameo in a movie, you're never going to see a supporting cast of a Ryder come back, pretty much. Like maybe in the Fives episode, maybe I don't think so. It's probably just gonna be like the main two. Um, maybe in X8, but then again, there's like 4 writers in X8, so like half your supporting cast is writers, so that doesn't really count. But I mean, it could happen. Onari came back. Dude, like in that movie, Onari's like walking around the suit and like the hair and hat. I'm like, okay, why did Shotaro get weird hair for like the longest time? Because I'm like, he looks like Shotaro. I'm like, what the fuck did you do to your hair? And then like later, oh, it's Onari. He became a PI. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But for the longest time, I'm like, what the fuck did you do to your hair? Um, yeah, that was hilarious. As for like the general plot of the show, like I'm not a fucking fan of like, oh, writers need a king, because it's not an archetype that ever works. Like it just doesn't, because the whole thing of writers is like, okay, it works in Sentai. It's because like a Sentai team has a leader, so all the king thing is just, you just have to be more of like a good noble leader who protects everyone, kind of thing. And that kind of works in Sentai. It doesn't work in Rider because writers don't need leaders, because normally they either fight alone or they have like small groups. So whenever writers team up, they just like, oh look, there's more writers. Let's just fight together. I mean, like maybe you could have Rider one, like telling you who to attack or something, which is fine. But like, it's not the same thing as when Sentai does like, oh, we have a king. Like no, you don't have a band, you don't have a like group to lead. Like Ryder doesn't work like that, so I hate the king archetype. I mean, at least they didn't give him a fucking like super stuck up personality, like like Kabuto or Decade for like a third writer with that personality in the third anniversary series. I mean, like Kabuto's an anniversary series, like Decade's an anniversary series. Like Forza is the only anniversary series where we don't have an asshole as like the main writer. Um, and so it's nice to have like a normal guy. That's fine. Okay,
Yeah,
relatively normal. Yeah,
relatively. Like that whole "I'm going to be a king" thing was pretty weird for me. It's like, do you
yeah.
hear how you sound?
Someone had better ask him, why do you want to be a king of all things? It'll be a great opportunity to give Sogo character development. Like,
Oh,
where did this whole idea of I'm going to be a king come from
I didn't even
anyway?
think of that. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I was thinking like I mean his uncle is so chill even though you could see like underneath like he's freaking out pretty much. It's like kid, pick something. You had to go to some university because here's the thing, like Japan's university system doesn't work the same as like the West where it's like, oh, you go to high school, you get high marks, you pass, and then you just enter university, right? Like that's not how universities in Japan work. Like they have entrance exams. So basically, it's like you go to high school and then you have to pass an entrance exam to go into university. I mean, like, that sounds normal. Here's the thing, though. Most of the entrance exams are generally in an area. The different universities all have their exam at once on the same day. So you can't, apply to different universities pretty much.
Oh,
So you
that
just have to pick and choose.
sucks.
Yeah, that's fucked up, all right. You want to hear what's even more fucked up? It's like, so normally here, you just pass like a general knowledge test and you study for that stuff in high school, right?
Hmm.
In Japan, what they do is, no, you have to study your high school shit, and that's just to pass high school. To get into university, there are separate subjects you have to study. So you basically have to go to cram school on top of going to high school,
Oh, jeez.
and like they change the subjects year to year, and different schools have different subjects, and it's like this whole clusterfuck. Like that's why how in like XA they're like, oh, doctors are basically gods or whatever. It's That's the whole thing. Like doctors and lawyers, if you can be a doctor or a lawyer in Japan, it's huge because they're like the hardest universities to get into and like pass. Because you pretty much have to go to like pretty much like be set for life. If you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, it's like, no, you got to study from like basically like elementary,
Oh,
junior high, like go to the right high school, go to the right university, pass the test, do all this extra shit. And
so
that's if the system isn't trying to fuck you over, which just got revealed for like the last like what, like 5 to 7 years, like the universities have been like deliberately lowering the test scores of like the female applicants.
oh,
So
jeez.
like normally they would have passed, but they deliberately lowered their scores.
So
And it's like, so yeah, you've basically ruined like hundreds of people's lives at this point. Because like if you fail, then you just like, okay, you pass high school, but then you have to take new like year-round cram school courses because the next year's tests aren't going to be the same as last year's tests, you know.
so
Plus, like
XA
all this
wasn't
costs money.
just like wasting time in playing video games. Like he was actually hauling ass.
Yeah, like to be like a doctor, like Hero, like he's so stuck up and stuff, but like for Hero to get there, like he would have probably had to study from like junior high and stuff. Like basically sacrifice your life. Like Emu, the whole thing of like, oh, like 5 years ago I decided I wanted to be, a doctor or some shit. Like he would have had to bust his ass like 24/7 to make that happen. Right? Like it's insanity.
And now I have
And
more
so
appreciation for Emu.
yeah, so that's why like that's why probably his like uncle is freaking out. It's like, dude, like, pick something because like the amount of work it takes to get into universities in Japan is insane.
All right. So, Kamen Rider Zi-O. Uh, uh, I want to talk about.
Nice segue.
uh, so, I want to talk about all the different factions that are trying to mess with history that are all in like different affiliations. You have Waz, who is basically Sugo's personal assistant, and he's the only one trying to preserve the timeline where Sugo becomes the Demon King. Supposedly, he could be lying about all that. I wouldn't be surprised. You have Gaze and Tsukuyomi, who are trying to stop Sugo from becoming the Demon King. And then you have the Time Jackers, who are trying to create their own evil future. Go on, Decade.
Uh, well, first of all, I like how the narrator is basically a character that isn't a writer or a Sentai member. So that's kind of fun. I do like Was. And I can't wait until he turns evil. I don't know. I hope he does.
You're already like preparing for
I
it.
want him to go evil. He needs a monster form. Or like an evil rider form. Anyways. But yeah, I agree with Zero. Gaze's suit is pretty awesome. And Wool, who is the first time jacker we saw, is still creepy as fuck. And his actor is great. But that's all I have to say.
I like that Waz is the narrator. I hope that he says something misleading to the audience in every episode to trick us into what we think we're going to see in the episode, and then we see something different. As for Wool, of like this character I imagine who has a horrible personality and constantly says terrible things to freak people out with a cheery smile on his face. So I'm getting some Parad vibes from him. Some from Waz, but way more from Wool.
Maybe, but with Wool, I'm getting more of a Sora feel from Wizard, mostly. But I do see a bit of Palette in him, too. He's just a creepy little kid who just is having the time of his life doing what he's doing. And you know what? I can respect that. He may be a villain, but he's accepting it, and he's just gonna take it all the way. As for Was, I do like that he's the narrator too. Cookie has about he's about to spoil the episode, and he goes, "Oh, whoops! I must have read too far." I really like that.
Whoops! I can see the future.
Yeah, way to do it. It's like, oh crap, read too far. I'll let you guys figure that out. It's giving him a sense of humor that you wouldn't expect from somebody who's basically the narrator given character. I really like it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Santa Ryuga thing they did, but to a more personal scale. It's not just them arguing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like the new characters are pretty great. So I don't have the names down. I'll just say the dude with the book. He's cool. Like I wonder what he's like. I'll remember it eventually. Like I was just binging both episodes. I don't really remember anybody's names. That's why. Um, yeah, like he's pretty cool. Like I like. Okay, it's weird that he just shows up and disappears. Right? I'm like, I wonder what the hell's up with that. Because like, there's no effect, right? Whereas like the time jackers or whatever, like those guys have like that weird time skippy thing going on when they're moving. But like he just kind of comes and goes. I'm like, is he like one of those guys or like what's going on? Um, I also like that like he's like, yeah, I'm here to make sure the original timeline happens. Like I don't give a shit otherwise. And he's kind of just like standing there announcing stuff because like like Gio's gonna basically be a king or whatever, right? So like it kind of makes sense. I'm like that's an interesting way to do it. As for like the other like uh it's always more interesting if like the villains have like a clear goal, or at least like they have a stated goal right off the bat, because they're like, yeah, I'm just trying to make my own king, or like give enough power to the person we think who should be king, not you. I'm like, that's cool. We know what they're up to. Plus, like he has a weirdo personality, which I'm like, okay, that's good too, because like I'm so fucking sick of like evolved shit from last year. Like get us
What
get
am I
yeah
doing? Eh?
yeah yeah. Plus that with like being so damn smug all the time. I'm like, can we not?
Oh, I bet you
Like the
didn't see
whole
this one coming.
yeah. Whereas like the other, I mean like um the character in this show, like the first film that we've seen, it's kind of like, oh shit, I didn't expect you to kind of do that. But it's like, whatever,
Hey,
man.
could you
I'll figure.
not?
Yeah, it's like you're fucking this, like the person you're trying to save. You're killing them, right? You're destroying their future. It's like I love how he like stops for a second, and then you're like, hmm. And then like Gio kind of gives like a speech, which that was a good speech, but I'm like, what freaking 18-year-old would give that speech? I also like how they like even point that out. It's like, yeah, like you're so young, but like that's exactly how like the Demon King would sound. I'm like, okay, good, you're acknowledging that that sounded too mature for this character, um which is cool. I mean, like the show's got such an interest. It's got a very interesting feeling where it's like it's not like there are mysteries and stuff, and like you clearly don't know exactly how it will end up at the end point, but it's not like trying to bear like, oh, look at our mystery box, or look at this all powerful villain, or like we're just gonna hide whatever. It's got this weird mix of like it's got mystery, but like things are flowing at a nice pace, and the characters weirdly don't have as much conflict as you would think they would have, because they're like, yeah, I still don't trust you 100%, or I still don't buy what you're saying 100%, but like for now we'll work together. That's cool.
I will say on Waz, the guy with the book, becoming evil, I'm definitely expecting that to happen. Because he wants Zi-O to become the evil Demon King, and if Zi-O isn't doing that, he's not going to be happy.
Yeah, I what would be cool, like I mean, he could just remain a good guy and become like Peridot,
I could
where he
also.
kind of has he has his own thing, and then he becomes like a helping character later on. But if he becomes like a villain later on, I want him to be like Bishop from Kiva, where it's like, no, I'm the only asshole who's actually, trying to do the, like standard expected thing. The rest of you douchebags are like doing your own thing and like going against the rules and fucking everything up. He's all about order and stuff. I'm like, we haven't seen a villain like that in a while. That'd be cool. I mean, I guess you could say Utsumi was supposed to be like that, but like, not really. He was kind of his own mess, to be honest.
I could also see him kind of becoming like the Ankh of the show, where he just is loyal to Zi-O, so he'll just like stand by him whatever decisions he makes.
Oh, that would be cool too. Yeah, I didn't think of the Ankh thing, but that'd be pretty cool, especially if he's like one of the like he's got the same ability or whatever as like the Time Jacket. Like I don't know what the hell they are. Like they could just be humans from the future at this point. Like, but let's say if they're monsters and he's of the same race or whatever, it'd be cool if he's got like an Ankh thing going on.
So I'm pretty sure they are humans from the future. I don't know how far into the future though. They know about Omazio, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're from that 50-year future, because what I think is going on is that Waz says that everything he does is to turn Sojo into the Demon King, right? Well, he actively prompts Zi-O to go and fight the Another build. So I'm wondering if the Timejackers are the cause of Omazio.
I mean, it could be so like a closed loop type thing, but the problem with that is like clearly by the end of this we're gonna have like a decade thing of like no fuck that, I'm just gonna become the hero. So like if they're causing like I think what's actually happening is like yeah they might be the cause of creating the Demon King, but it could actually be like a three-way fight going on where it's like okay this is the normal timeline, this is the timeline where like Zi-O happens and he becomes good, and then there's like actually like no like four timelines. Yeah, so like normal timeline, nothing happens. Timeline where Zi-O becomes Demon King. Timeline where Zi-O becomes hero, and then like timeline where like the
Timejackers win.
Timejackers win. Yeah, and so like they're all kind of happening. Well, three of them are happening. Like Zi-O, he already accepted, so we're not on that timeline. Um,
Unless someone kills Zi-O.
It's unlikely. I mean, like, you mean we're actually gonna do that DN decade thing for reals this time?
Come on, let's try it again. uh,
Okay, you know what? Like, considering this is the writer of like Go Riders, like I could see it happening, but I don't think so because what might happen is like he does kill him or something, and that's what like
oh,
either creates the Demon King or like splits them in two or something.
I just realized something. You're talking about how the whole like leader type thing doesn't work in Rider. This is also the lead writer for Ninja.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he's done a lot of stuff. He also wrote like the Kikaider live action one. You know, the one that had a crossover with Gaim.
I didn't actually watch that.
Like I haven't seen that, but apparently it was decent. Um, to be fair, like episode two was pretty decent until like literally the end, where I'm like, okay, this better be intentional, or it's a gigantic fucking plot hole. Because like that's the problem with time travel, you have to know exactly what the hell you're doing because as soon as you introduce a plot hole like your whole story starts falling apart, like even a small one,
We'll get into
you
that
know.
later.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. uh
what do the rest of you think about Waz being evil or the Timejackers maybe causing Omazio or anything that we were just discussing?
A theory that Omazio sent Waz back in time to encourage his future self his past self, sorry, to become him. I don't know how that is going to go out, if that's even the truth. How many possible timelines there are, so honestly, I don't really know what the true cause, quote unquote, of Omazio is, although a possibility could be that Omazio because he's been trying to be the hero for so long and it's just not working, and he finds out being a king is just really, really hard. So he eventually becomes king, but it because now everyone's trying to kill him and he hasn't made the world better, he's made the world worse.
oh, that would actually be really a pretty cool plot line, like the realities of being a king weighing down on him. I mean, it's a writer show, so he's gonna become good. But like, if we actually at some point have like an arc where like he's just not winning because like doing the right thing and doing the smart thing are two different things. Like if we ever get to that plot line, that'd be pretty cool.
Also, I will pay money to see Sogo and Oma Zi-O talk face to face.
Oh, third year in a row. Emu, Peridot, Sento, Katsuragi, now what? Zi-O, Omazio? That'd be cool though.
Yeah.
Decade King.
I got nothing.
No, I'm good.
All right. So, the another build wasn't truly defeated because I don't know, something to do with time travel. Uh,
Yeah, one sec.
oh, okay. Well, Zero will be right back. um, so
Oh,
Gabe,
sorry. Like you guys weren't supposed to hear that. My bad. I'm still here.
uh, Gaze tries fighting him and can't do anything, and Sogo goes to visit Sento and Banjo to see if they can help, and they don't remember anything because Sento isn't billed anymore. He's not even Sento anymore, he's Takumi again. But then they find their rider watches in their pockets and give them to Sogo. And Sento gives them the hint to go to the past. So he and Gaze do that to team up to fight, try and defeat the evil build there. And this is where the whole time travel paradox plot stuff kicks in. Because Sento effectively isn't billed. That timeline was changed. So what does that mean for going forward? Well, my thought process on it is that what happened was that they didn't actually change history. Uh, they started to. For example, why is Takumi and Banjo still friends? Well, Sento got changed, but it didn't like really change everything that happened. So it's just kind of like putting his new identity into the current setup, wherein he's best friends with Banjo, and so Banjo was indirectly affected in that sense, I guess.
Time travel.
Uh, Also, why did they disappear anyways at the end of the episode? Like, why do Build and Cross still not exist? Because they can't. The evil build, while the evil build still technically exists in 2018, they can't. So, but at some point, it's clear that the evil build goes back in time to try and defeat the other build in 2017. So it's possible that Sento can become built again after that happens, I think. This show doesn't really explain a lot because the more it would try to explain it, the less sense it would probably make.
See, my thoughts on what happened there is like, okay, your thought process is like, oh, if they did everything right, it's still weird. Mine is like they fucked up somewhere in the writing, and therefore it's a plot hole where it's like, okay, what they actually did is they're like, oh, one, they forgot that like Sento shouldn't look like that. Like Katsuragi shouldn't look like Sento, right? This is my thought process if what was written was a plot hole instead of being intentional. So if it was a plot hole, it's like one, they forgot that like Katsuragi and Sento don't look alike. He should still look like Katsuragi. Two, it's like, yeah, like freaking Banjo and Katsuragi would still exist. You know, it's fine. Three, instead of a year, they should have gone back 2 years. And then it would have made perfect sense because then it would have been like the X8 crossover where it's like Katsuragi was in the suit. You know, so they're just like they're random people, and like the show happened, but like the writer of Zi-O forgot that like Bill took 2 years to become to come to an end instead of 1 year. So I think like the way you're phrasing it, it's like, yeah, if they did it right, it's still a weird thing that happened. Mine is like, okay, what if they fucked up and they forgot that like in reality, like if they put them back 2 years, it would have been fine. It would have been like, oh, Banjo before all the shit happened to him, and
I don't
like
think they were
Katsuragi.
allowed to put them back 2 years.
No, I know, but the thing is, like, if they put them back 2 years ago, it would have been fine because then it would have been like, okay, right, like Katsuragi would still like all of build would still happen. It's just you met Katsuragi this one weird time, like forever ago, you know? And then like all of build happens anyway. And like Banjo and like Katsuragi just happened to be there. But then like later on, because Katsuragi's memory gets wiped and Banjo's memory gets wiped, so like they both wouldn't remember, so it would be fine. But that's if they said it 2 years ago. But uh, if they said it 1 year ago, none of this fucking nonsense makes sense. Unless like the writer of Zi-O thought that like build all of the shit from build happened like 1 year ago, and so he wrote like, oh, last year, and it fucked up. So like I think it's a plot hole. Well, unless it's deliberately building to something. Right now, I feel like it's a plot. That's what I was saying. Like this episode was great until that, and then it's like, what did you do? Did you like? Is this intentional or did you fuck up super hard?
I want to say it was intentional.
Yeah, I think it's intentional because he gives them back the watches, even though
No.
they don't
Okay,
work.
I actually, Fashi corrected
Because
me on that. He doesn't give them back the same watches. He gives them blank ones to give
well,
to
no,
him.
don't they turn blank or?
No. I thought that at
I mean,
first too, and then I rewatched the episode, and no, he just gives them two random blank ones because I guess he has a stash of them.
yeah, I mean to be fair, it's fine. Like the watches part make perfect sense. It's the why is this happening 1 year ago? Because if this happens 1 year ago, all of build kind of falls
Okay,
apart.
the actual answer for why does this happen 1 year ago is because build started 1 year ago.
Yeah, I know, but like technically, like
That's the
for
best answer you're gonna get,
yeah,
unfortunately.
I know. It's just it's an external reason, but like internally in universe, this story should have happened 2 years ago, and then like all of build would have happened, and none, and we would have no problems, right? Because it's like, oh, like instead of Sento, it should have been like Katsuragi in the build suit, and, like Banjo was there too for some weirdo reason. Um, they go back, they defeat like the build monster thing or another build, and then he just hands them the watches because like in 2 years time they'll give him back the watches and it'll complete the full time loop, and like in the meantime all of build would happen and it would be perfectly fine because those guys will get their memory wiped or like they won't remember most of it anyway, so like nothing would change. But it's like it's not a perfect time loop because like what you said where it's like, no, they're actually doing it deliberately, where it's like the timeline wasn't reset properly. And so I think like the biggest thing is like, well, who's fucking up the timeline, right? Like, is it one of the other time jackers? Is it like
Was.
Mr. Book Guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it him? Is it like the real Demon King or whatever, or like something? Is it like Decade where like weirdo shit happens regardless of what you do? Like the normal timeline doesn't get restored. It's so weird. Like that's why I don't like time travel stuff because like it fucks up so much shit. Because like the rest of the episode was great. It was just like a normal like crossover between like, okay, to be fair, it was actually kind of a weak crossover because it was mostly like Zi-O and then like Bill showed up at the end. But like, hey, at least they were in character, so I'm like, I count that as a win compared to the shit show that Decade was with its crossovers. Like if the rest of the show was that, I'd be fine with it. But then this whole time travel nonsense is gonna really mess shit up.
All right, what do you guys
Um,
think?
yeah.
Honestly, my biggest problem with this, especially if they're going to continue this format going forward, is what about the villains? If this is really taking place in early December of 2017, if Sento and Banjo lose their memories and their powers, Evil can destroy the planet easily. Does changing the timeline mean that Evil also disappears? But that makes no sense because without Evil, the build system would not even exist unless he disappears at the moment the time jackers
Well,
create another build. So my question is, once you change the timeline and transfer those riders' powers to Zi-O, do their enemies also disappear? Or do they stay around, meaning that the world has the potential to get destroyed or at least wrecked multiple times?
this may
Yeah,
be.
they're pulling a lot of paradoxes for that
Oh,
in
yeah.
so many of the shows. Like Build, Xaid, Ghost, you could argue, just Drive. The list just goes on and on for all of the Heisei writers. There is at one point or another, if you keep this format, there's gonna be another paradox, and I don't know how they're gonna explain that many, because if they
Mm,
keep this up, it's just gonna keep piling as time goes
oh,
on.
this show itself is gonna have more paradoxes than Deno.
Or Decade combined.
Uh,
You know what the saddest part is? This kind of now makes me realize like why Decade had those weirdo like super alternate worlds because like who cares? You know, like you just showed up for one day of the right and alternate riders' lives. Like their fight with their villains and all that shit was totally different than yours, than the main story. So it's like it doesn't matter if you change their stuff. Actually, Decade didn't even change that much because like it wasn't time travel. Deno is time travel.
yeah.
True.
Um, yeah. Whereas like this, yeah, you're right. Like the paradoxes will pile up. Like some shows you could kind of get away with, where it's like, okay, without the writers, like the escalation wouldn't be as bad. But you're right. Like Evolt is just a gigantic
So
mess because like it doesn't matter what you do, he would like unless you go back like 10 years before the probe went to Mars, like you're screwed.
Yeah.
this may be a cop out answer, but here's my explanation. They're not changing all of history, just the parts that they need to.
So you're saying like another build took out Evolt?
I'm saying that they kept in the part where Evil was taken out.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, to be fair, like another build, like one, that suit is freaking awesome, and two,
It's
he
cool.
uses his best matches way better than Build ever did, which is sad. But I'm like, all right, maybe they got a different choreographer. To then again, he's basically using his best matches like wizard rings. Uh, because like that swimming one, I'm like, okay, that's straight up fucking beast dolphin power up that like wizard used in like one episode. Um, So yeah, you're right. Maybe they're just like, okay, normal build got replaced by another build, and like all of
No, I'm
the
not.
normal build timeline happened. Okay, yeah, it's still weird because Japan would be a mess.
What I'm saying is that they everything normal Bill did to defeat Evil happened, and now after that, replace him with Evil Build.
Okay, so from going forward, I'm going to assume all the timeline changes are after that Rider defeats their monster. I'm going to assume that is true unless the show contradicts me, and I hope it doesn't because then nothing will make sense.
I mean, the problem is we got a date where it's like December, 2017. That's like what, halfway through build,
Not even
or I mean,
close. That's
I
early
guess
build.
to be. Yeah, but like I'm thinking that date is there just for the movie or something. But yeah, you're right. Early build.
Heck, the war
Uh,
might not have even started by then. No. The war hadn't started. The war doesn't start till Christmas.
oh man, that's okay. Yeah, if we go with like another build 2 card Evolved or Stark, I guess at that point before the war started, the timeline could still work out.
Uh,
Yeah,
another
because
another theory I'd
wasn't
been
even
working with was that whole section where they go back to 2017 to fight the evil build in the past was not changing history. It was the attempt to change history, and so it was kind of like a pocket bubble in as a timeline, ready to expand out, and then Zi-O came in and stopped that from happening.
Okay, so we're like demoing this, but the problem with that is like, then how did like that's the problem with the end of this fucking episode is like, okay, if Zio basically or Geo basically saved the day, why did history get changed anyway?
Because the only history they're actually affecting is 2018, where they are actively doing these things. Is that a good explanation? Probably not. That's the best I can come up with.
They should have just made a goddamn crossover show instead of the stupid time travel. Because like the crossovers would have been hard enough to get right, but like the time travel is just messed up so bad. And this is like episode 2. You know, that's that's the worst part. Like literally, if the time travel nonsense, it's like okay. If the time travel was like they came from the future to protect or like either take out Zio, before he becomes the Demon King, fine. That's all the time travel you need. Like the going back in time is bullshit. It should have just been like Zio just runs into other riders because like either like he wants to get their abilities to become the Demon King or he wants to, protect them from getting their timeline screwed over. Like they shouldn't have gone back in time because like what okay, it depends on what the hell the next episode is. If the next episode is set in like 2016, like we're going to have problems.
I expect we're gonna have problems because the majority of the episode will be in 2018, as Sogo somehow meets Emu, and then the big fight will be in 2016, like this one was.
Yeah. I mean like as long as they don't, well, I guess they're going to mess up Emu too, which sucks. But I guess they're building up to like some twist or something. Like okay, if they mess Emu up the same way, then it's deliberate. If they don't, then it's a plot hole. But we'll see. Um, yeah, what did you guys think of? Like, okay, 2 things. What happens when they go to Agito's timeline? Do we
Yeah,
get
okay,
another Agito?
I've been waiting for
Yeah, we
that.
talked about that.
I don't know the implications for Agito's timeline.
Okay, so in Agito, they're basically Agito himself is a human psychic that evolved into a greater form, and that's what Agito is. It wasn't his name, it was his species, but that's what the monsters
Ah.
kept calling him, so he took it as his name. Then, come along later in the series, another Agito appears, and so that became his canon name, Another Agito.
So it's gonna be another Agito.
Yeah,
Or like
that's the best show. I mean, to
alternative
be fair,
Agito.
yeah, okay, that's hilarious because right, like if people who haven't seen Agito and stuff, like, okay, so there's normal Agito. Gills is an Agito that didn't have like the normal evolutions, so like his evolution got messed up. That's why he's a weirdo green dude. Um, Another Agito is basically Agito, except he looks more like Agito fused with Rider One.
Oh yeah, I
So
remember.
he's just
He
more.
was in Kamen Sentai Go Rider, that guy.
Yeah, that guy. He's pretty cool. I mean, well, he kind of starts out as a jerk, but he becomes pretty awesome by the end. Um, right. But like in Agito, the thing is they're basically X-Men. So they're just like another evolved state of humanity. So that means anyone can basically become like an Agito. So yeah, when they go back and it's like, oh, it's another. Oh, we already have that one. So yeah, alternative Agito. I'm like, that's a good name, but then I'm like, I'm just thinking that's just like a cross between like freaking Ryuki and Agito at that point. Um, where
Why
they're using
not?
like the
If they're gonna do that in any
alternative.
series.
Oh
What?
man, that would have been interesting. Oh, dude, you remember that Ryuki movie, where all the Agito cast shows up?
Yes, episode 5.
Yes. Oh my god. Like, I wish we would have something like that again. Like, okay, let's say we do the stupid thing. Okay, I guess Decade was basically that, where it's like you have the old actors, but they're different now, which kind of sucked ass because they were still doing their old roles. Whereas in that Ryuki movie, it's like you basically have the entire main cast of Agito, except they're not playing themselves; they're just playing random people who just show up. Um, so they go to a restaurant, and like the guy who's the cook at the restaurant is like Agito, and like the people sitting across the table from like who is it, like
Re-
Shinji or
yeah,
whoever.
Shinji and Fem.
Yeah, and then is basically the G3 unit, pretty much. Oh, and then Hojo,
Oh,
I guess, was there.
oh, Gills was also in that movie.
Oh,
He's a
he sure was. He got punched out by
yeah,
Lem.
he's a random guy that Asakura beats the shit out of.
Oh shit, you're right. It's Asakura. I keep thinking it's like Ren, but like no, that's
No,
a different
it
episode.
was Kamen Rider Oja who like just beats the shit out of Gills on the street. I forgot what we were talking
I'm
about for a second, but then I remembered Zi-O. Uh,
Yeah. So, any thoughts on the suit or anything, you guys, or like the armored forms?
I really like the build form, actually. It works really well. And I loved the gag of, like, when he tries to do the formula thing, it's all like, I don't remember what these are. And
yeah.
Sento's
That was
just
hilarious.
upset. Like,
I was like, oh my god, how can someone be this bad at physics?
I
That was
learned this one as a freshman.
that was pretty funny. I love the forms though. All of the suits look pretty cool, including the another build soon. I'm looking forward to the other another rider suits going forward.
So I'm back. Um, I just I hope there's some explanation behind Gaze having the ghost watch. And spoiler alert, if you saw the preview for next episode, he has the drive watch as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So I hope there's at least some explanation. I would be
I,
disappointed if there isn't.
I'm expecting the explanation to be he found them in the future somehow.
Okay, one quick question: is there like another like mini episode or special or something?
There's probably like that X8 style, like in between episode segments.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
didn't
it's
know
like
X8
Japan.
did that.
Yeah, I think like Japanime or something like made a video on this, and people are like, "Yeah, it all makes a little more sense if you watch episode what is it like point five or something." It's got a dumbass name. I'm like, we've already had a goddamn special out. Okay, it's either for this or for something else. I'm thinking it's probably for this nonsense, which might explain the ghost thing. But I'm like, oh great, another damn show where like critical backstory is locked away, and not in the show, which sucks. You were saying Henshin?
Oh, I was just saying I didn't know XA did between episode specials.
It did for
Oh
like
yeah,
the
they did.
first 5 or 6 episodes, and it was all leading up to like teasing Dan as a villain.
Maybe I should go back and watch those if I have time. I mean, it's
Look
been.
up Snipe Zero. Trust me, that one is worth it for Taiga.
I mean, I have yet to see the three movies that come after another ending.
Oh,
I need to watch those. Wave Snipe,
Yeah,
Bobby Parad, and Gem Laser. Need to watch those.
yeah, I have to watch those too. Like, it's kind of getting a little too extreme with these. I mean, like, I was gonna say it's not as bad as freaking Drive, but like, I don't know. I mean, the movie count is more than Drive, to be honest. You know what the worst part is? You know how like Gentoku turns into a fucking weirdo in like the end, and so like, where does this damn sense of humor come from? Because like
I
all the time
still
you see
say
him,
it's a
he's
midlife crisis.
what? Sorry, could
she
you repeat
says it
that?
was a. She thinks it's a midlife crisis.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, the real reason is because like, he asked them to change his character for his daughter,
Yeah.
because he was playing the villain and it was like freaking her out. So he's like,
Main
"Yeah, could you make my
story.
character? You can make my character lighter." Um, but the thing is, like, if you've seen like the Henshin special for like Gentoku, where he's like, "Oh yes, he's trying to be cool or whatever." And be all calm and collected, but he keeps like doing it and then going into weirdo over like cliche villain mode, and like his like lackeys are like, okay, dude, no, like tone it down, like you're being a weirdo creep right now. And it's like, okay, no, again, and he does it like 3 times. I'm like, all right, that bit of humor, if it was in the show, I could have seen his like humor moment later on work out, because like that kind of like foreshadows that he's got like this weirdo humorous side when people aren't looking. But like that's not in the fucking show, and like the Henshin specials generally are not canon. So like, if it was in the show, it would be a decent foreshadowing for his change. But as like a special, and especially a Henshin special, which is basically the equivalent of like a hyper battle DVD video, which basically means like, yeah, it's there, it exists, but like it's super non-canon.
Doesn't he do something like that in the Rogue 3-parter? I haven't seen that either.
Maybe. Um, I think we've pretty much gone over everything about the episode at this point. Anyone else have anything else they want to say before we wrap this up?
Okay, what did you guys think of? Actually, go ahead, Henshin, and then I'll.
Touched on Wool briefly, but we've mentioned his character. I forget exactly what Sogo argued back to him when Will's like, "Oh yeah, I totally saved this guy by turning him into a monster." Did Sogo say something like,
Sogo said he basically compared a life to a clock. On a clock, you can move time however you want, but a human life can't do that, and when it stops, it stops. It moves forward on its own, not because someone else made it move forward.
I
"I,"
mean,
and
I,
I
I
get
think
that
he actually
because
said some. Yeah, I think he actually says like, yeah, in a clock you can move it back and forth, like you can move the hands whichever way you want, but human life you can't. And then he says like, um, it's up like, yeah, you're basically saying like, oh, this guy was good at basketball, and this accident would have ruined his like, career or life or whatever,
It
right? And then
actually
he
would
just
have killed
says,
him.
yeah, and then he basically then says like, it doesn't matter like what happens at the end of the day. It's up to like the person to, uh, you know, make their dreams come true. Pretty much, he's basically saying like, you made him like a hero or great or whatever, but like, just because this guy got into an accident doesn't mean like his career would have been over. Like if he wanted to play basketball, he'll find a way. Pretty much he's saying like, like you can't determine like somebody's future. Right? Like if they wanted it bad enough, they could like do it themselves. I'm like that was a good message. I'm kind of messing it up. Um and it's kind of like a really mature and like decent thing to say.
Yeah,
But I'm
that's
like,
his own.
no 18-year-old would have said that, but like the show kind of acknowledges that like that's a little too mature for a normal person to say. Uh, that being said, like, man, is it good that it's not like fucking Wizard or some shit where it's like, oh yeah, too bad you didn't work out. You're gonna be fucking dead, you know? All right, like in this, I think they softened it where it's like, oh, it would have just wrecked his career instead of like, nah, he would have been fucking dead. And so he's not pretty much just showing up like the hero's just saying, yeah, it's fine. You can't save this guy. Let him die. It's his choice or whatever.
Also,
Uh,
Wooly's like bragging, like, "Yeah, I kept this guy alive. Look at him. He's alive because of me." And Zio's kind of saying, "You call this living?"
yeah, that's a good point. My other thing with that is like I wonder if like it would have been revealed that like no, they intentionally like set up the car to like hit them or something. But I'm like, maybe some episodes down the line we'll see that, or maybe they are literally just finding people who were gonna almost die. So it's kind of this weird like Fies type setup, kind of.
Also, I'm realizing that Sogo took what Junichiro told him in episode one, which was a similar thing about the clock, and then kept going with it. So it's part of what his granduncle told him, and also he added his own thing.
Hmm. Oh, all right, Zio. The other thing you were wanted to say?
Oh right, I wanted to say shit. I literally just forgot.
You are
Give
gonna
me
ask
one.
our opinion on something?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we did the suits, and man. Okay, now I can't remember. Give me a minute. You guys think about.
All right. Well, I'm gonna move on to final thoughts while Zero figures that out. I really enjoyed this episode. I was disappointed last week when it seemed like, oh, the build plot was done and over with so soon, but no, they carried it forward here, and I look forward to seeing what they do with XA next week and going forward with other riders. We're probably not going to get hit all of them, but I'm interested in seeing which ones they do get and which veteran actors they get to return. Hopefully, Blade.
Please.
Blade again.
Please.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm curious to see also what kind of paradoxes the time jackers are going to inadvertently cause to the writer's stories. That will be much more interesting than Decade's straight up a different random ass universe. So looking forward to that.
I'm still on the fence as to whether I'll be continuing the show, but despite all of the confusing time travel stuff, it is not bad, so I'll be continuing to watch it. There's some really good parts, and I'm really hoping we get more character development and also some interesting stuff with the veteran riders in the next few episodes.
Yeah, I'm still a bit on the fence myself, but I mean, I do want to give this show a chance. I just really, really, really hope I don't keep getting headaches from the paradoxes. Please, if you can give me a simple story, as long as it's any story, I'm happy. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, this whole podcast drops the show 5 episodes in. That's what I've been getting the feeling of. To be honest, like yeah, I was kind of on the fence. Like the first episode started, I'm like, man, this is like bland and generic, and I'm super not into this writer versus writer thing that they're gonna set up this year. Um, but as like the episode, like it took most of episode one. Like at the end, I was like, okay, I'll check out episode two, and episode two was decent until the end, where I'm like, oh fuck, why did you do this? Like, hopefully the X8 episode's good. My only problem is like, I don't want them to fuck up X8 now, because I'm like, all right, everyone's gonna be cool, but like, I don't want them to like mess up like all the work that like X8 did, because like I'm like, oh no, they messed up build. Yeah, I mean like, I'm a little sad or something pissed. But like if they do it the same way that they did for build, then I'm like, okay, it's intentional, but I still won't like it. I guess if Drago was here, he'd probably be super upset with what they did at the end of this to build. Right. So I remember what I wanted to talk about. It's like, what did you guys think of them just all like living together and like how
Oh,
well they're like teaming up?
I just
Like
kind
I
of
thought that was
went, okay, this.
Gave me slight decade vibes, but I can live with that.
Hopefully, Gates won't be constantly trying to murder Sogo in his sleep.
well. I mean, he said he'll be watching him. I don't think it's gonna be that
He
harsh because he.
Keyword
he has
hopefully.
settled on giving Zi-O a chance.
To be fair, he's more. He really is Diet Ren at this point, where it's like, yeah, like at this point, even Ren didn't trust like Shinji this much. Where it's like, Gates at least wants to give him a chance. I mean, like that's what I'm saying. It's like it's
Man,
interesting that it's moving so quick, but it's also interesting that we're kind of setting up this like Ryuki situation.
man, it
Um,
just
you
occurred
know,
to me how easy it would have been for Ren to kill Shinji at any time.
yeah. I mean,
Like he
like
just
that's the
peels
whole
back
point.
the curtain and there's a window right there. Summons his monster to eat him.
I mean, I'm amazed he didn't do it when Shinji was snoring that bad. You know what I'm talking about, right?
No, I don't remember the snoring.
No. Oh, okay. So like Shinji gets kicked out of his apartment, and then like they move in together, and like so they don't have room. So like Ren and Shinji have this room, but like Shinji snores super bad,
I think
and
I.
Ren's like considering basically like fucking like just using a pillow and like snuffing him out. I mean like not that bad, but like he could not sleep at all. So he's like, okay, I all right, I'm not gonna murder you in your sleep, dude. And cuts back. So what did he do? And it's like, yeah, he just like freaking like put like a clothing pin on like Shinji's nose or something. I think at one point, and then
I
it's
totally
like,
remember that.
yes, it was
Uh,
such a great.
I I don't directly remember this, but this sounds familiar, and I can just picture it happening.
Oh man, it's so great. That's why I fucking like. I hope like the show has kind of like a Ryuki dynamic between the main two, because like I miss that, where it's like, yeah, they do other shit and they're relatively down to earth when they're not doing their writer stuff. Like if we can get a show that does that again, I'd be so happy. As for like the show itself, like I don't know, I'm gonna give it like 5 episodes maybe, see how it goes, because like right now it's okay, it's not great, it's not like super interesting or anything. um but hopefully it pans out,
Do
because like Go Writers were so good. I want to see this writer get a good shot at writer, because like this is the last Heisei show, like let it be a good one for it to go out.
and let the next one not be Rider versus Rider. Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. We'll be back on Tuesday for Lupin Ranger versus Pet Ranger, and next Wednesday for more Kamen Rider Zi-O. See you next time.
I
Thanks for listening.
Later.
Thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.